Hey everybody, it's Rob here. Welcome to my one-shot Quill Volley build for the Spiritborn. This is the best build in the season and we're going to talk a lot of details and answer a lot of your questions. We have compiled an entire sheet here with the community answering various questions about breakpoints, about what items to use, about which caps to reach, about which tempers to get, and all these kind of things. This is going to be linked below. And this is probably the easiest build to do pit 150 with. You can hit for quintillions of damage here. And you can absolutely one-shot the bosses in the hardest pit. You see, this is a pit 150 here. Like, I just go onto the boss and you basically make a pull. You make him staggered and then you're triggering your big one-shot mechanic to deliver a tremendous blow, absolutely one-shotting everything in the game here. Okay, there is an achievement for this in-game. There is a title and an achievement, and this is probably the easiest way to get it right now, playing the one-shot build. There is a lot of different planners, and as you know, there's been, and if you follow the channel, there's been a crazy development on this class and on this build, because it just came out. And I think right now we finally arrived at a somewhat stable state here with this one-shot build. It is basically confirmed to be the best build known in the entire game, the strongest build, again, like hitting for absolutely ridiculous amounts of damage. And again, the easiest 150 you can do. So let's get into it. I'm gonna link all the planners and the information in the description. So people have had a lot of questions. And the first thing it always comes down to is which planner to follow and which setup to use. And the answer to that is basically it depends. There are a lot of different variants to this build. The one that we are currently playing is the one-shot build. This one does not use the Ring of the Midnight Sun anymore. Instead, we are getting our resources back for our Kepeleke with the gauntlets here that have a lucky hit chance to restore resource. And you see, we have quite a lot of hits and we have quite a lot of chance to restore, even though the lucky hit chance is only 15%. Like, there is a lot of projectiles, right? Especially with the new Kepeleke tech, where it's casting twice. You have a ton of projectiles triggering this lucky hit and basically like restoring your resources anyways. You see, like it still like restores it very, very fast. So we start with the main principle and then we go into detail. So the Rod of the Kepeleke is the key weapon of this build. It basically allows all our core skills to become basic skills, spend all of our vigor in one attack. You see here, if I'm not hitting anything, I attack, my entire vigor is gone, and it significantly boosts our damage for each point of vigor that we spend. And the more vigor you have, like let's say if you had 1,000 vigor, it would spend 1,000 vigor. And it would also increase the damage by 1,000 times 3% for every point of vigor spent. So it is insane. And then this build combines it with Banished Lord's Talisman. And that's where the first breakpoint of the build comes in. You need to spend 275 of your primary resources to get a guaranteed overpower. So there is a bug that you can spend a little bit less, but I still recommend as much resource as possible. You want to have a minimum of 275 if you're not abusing any of those bugs. So 275 resource you want to spend on every hit, and then every hit is going to be overpower. You can go under options, you can go under gameplay, and you can enable your overpower hits. And you can like do other things basically. But like, you know, like once you have the build like working, like you see when my life here is full, like boom, my number will be orange. You see orange, orange, orange. That's basically how it goes. So we restore vigor on every hit. And there's basically two ways of doing this. You either play Midnight Sun, and then when you crit, you restore. And you're critting all the time thanks to Kepeleke, which gives you a guaranteed crit every time. And then the second version, this is the new version, the stronger version, more DPS, is with the Gloves lucky hit. However, this one is not too reliable. So if you are a casual player, you definitely want to start with the Midnight Sun version. You don't want to use any of this yet. You're just going to start with the Midnight Sun version. And there is a calculator here that's also linked in the sheet. So if you don't know where to start, this is a good way. You start with the Resolve stacking build.
2628, have you got Aspect of Interdiction 50?
Sorry, I need to mute that. I have it, yeah, but I don't have one for trade. So you need to start with the Midnight Sun version to generate your resources here. And this is going to allow you basically on every hit just to regenerate your resource as long as you have enough resource generation. Again, there is a calculator that is linked here that you can use to restore and recover those resources with Kepeleke. And then with your Midnight Sun and Kepeleke. And then the second variant here again uses the roll here on the gloves, giving you primary resource on lucky hit, and we lucky hit a lot. And that basically frees up the ring slot because now we can take in another multiplier. And this is what allows the crazy one-shots. We're going to get into those details a bit later. But yeah, basically, casual variant is with Midnight Sun. High endgame optimized 150 variant without Midnight Sun is what is recommended. And I get this question asked a lot. If you're using that variant, you do not need the greater affix primary resource on your gloves. It's better to have it, but you're going to be fine if you have enough resource generation here. You just need to be able to generate 100% resources with your Revenger active. Again, use the calculator, or like, you know, like if you have a 60% roll here, you know you need about a 55% resource generation in total. You're getting this usually from your intelligence. You're getting this usually from your chest. You're getting this usually from your Revenger. And you're getting this usually from your Vigorous, which is also increasing your generation after casting a core skill, which is Quill Volley. So this is like the main principle of the build, and it allows you to deal crazy amounts of damage. If you feel like you don't have enough resource generation, you can just use the tempering, where I have resource cost reduction now. You can just use the temper to temper resource cost generation if you're having a problem with this. You know, if not every of your numbers is orange, basically. Okay, again, you don't need the GA resources. And then I'm going to quickly show you the entire gear of the end game build here. I'm just going to explain it to you, and then we're going to go into all the questions that you guys had. So principle first, before you enter the run, you pre-buff yourself. What we use to pre-buff is the Elixir of Fortitude. This gives us life. It is better than a resource elixir. We're going to go into the details on why that is a little bit later. We're using Chores of War. We're using Rediment Buzz for even more life. Life is the craziest scaler you have in this build. And you're using Song of the Mountain. If you need Armor Cap, I need Armor Cap right now, so I'm going to use those three. You see I get my Armor Cap. And alternatively, if you have enough armor, you can use the Storm of the Wilds. But you see, you want to make sure you have 1000 armor. I think it's definitely recommended. I don't have max res. However, I don't think max res is too important because you have such a big life and such a big barrier pool here that it basically does not really matter all too much. It's still okay to have some resistances, or even max resistance is still decent because then your barrier has a higher potency. But the main way here, guys, so we use the Helm here, which gives us Resolve stacks. Resolve stacks scales our damage like crazy. We go into the details why in a little bit. We use Barrier. Barrier is the second thing that's very, very important to have because of our passive Viscous Shield, which gives us a multiplier for every barrier point that we have, basically. And this one is giving us way too much damage at the moment because it has some bugs. So you just want to stack as much life and as much barrier as you possibly can to basically activate this and get a crazy multiplier. You see here, you have this crazy barrier and crazy Fortify amount. I need to check a couple more times to fully get it. But you get the idea. You have as much barrier as your life, basically. And in order to reach that, you need to have 123% barrier generation in your sheet. You can have more. You see I have 2% more, but you want to have minimum 123. And this is due to the Bulwark giving you 45% base here with our POC-Q runeward combination. And 45%, you need to reach 100%, so you need 123% generation, right? To get it to 100 and then to make full use of your Viscous Shield. Then on the chest here, we're playing the Shroud of the False Death. This one gives you 1 to all passives. It's extremely powerful in the Spiritborn because you have various passives here that just simply multiply your damage, such as Potent, Furnace, Brilliance, Resilient with the life scaling, And even you get toughness here from Perseverance, you get DPS from Apex, DPS from Unconstrained Power. Like all these passives here increase your damage tremendously. So Shroud of the False Death is the best item. It also has a ton of life, it gives you even more damage. And it also has resource generation, which makes it easier, what I explained earlier, to generate enough resource on every hit to overpower. Very, very important. If you don't have Shroud, you can also play this build. And just take, it's also in the sheet, just take the slow aspect, I think it's Shroud Morse, and take the Resolve stacking there as well. Then on the gloves here now, this is my 150 build. We are using, this is the one-shot build, we're using Life, we're using Mystic Circle Potency, and we're using the Lucky Hit to restore our primary resource. You see here I get 90%, so all I need is basically like 12% resource generation or something. To basically get all the way until 100, and I easily have that, for example, with the chest. So I have a bit overkill at the moment even. So again, a non-greater affix roll on the lucky hit chance is fine. On the pants, we're using the resolve per block. So the more resolve stacks we have, that's why we're also stacking resolve stacks. It's one of the craziest multipliers, because in combination with your redirected force ring, it's giving you a crazy amount of damage. You can see this here. If you just open your sheet and you look at your crit damage, you see like you can reach like some crazy values here just with the block chance. So the way it works is the block chance can exceed 100%. It basically scales unlimited, and for every resolve stack you get more block chance, and for every block chance you have, you get more crit damage. And again, we established this earlier, we always crit with Kepeleke. Then we are using to increase our ferocity here by 5. We are also using the aspect here that increases our damage by up to 8% if you have Mystic Circle Potency for every ferocity stack. So our hunter here fulfills our ferocity, so we have 13 ferocity stacks. And so we are getting 13 times 8% damage from this aspect. And this one is applying twice. We're going to go into details on that, how that works later. So yeah, the boots are extremely good. You also want to go for the life. And then yeah, we have the Kepeleke here. I don't have the perfect roll. The order of stat importancy is you first want to have the 3%. Then you want to have the chance on core skills to hit twice. And then if you can, you also want to hit max resources. So ideally you have a triple crit on the chance skills to hit twice. However, I don't have Rawhide and resources at the moment, so I can't roll this. But this is the best way to do it. And then we're also using Xol here. We are invoking a skill from another class, which is the Bulwark from the Druid. So this basically triggers all the time, because we trigger the Bulwark all the time. We cast the Pock rune, just requires us to spend resources. And again, we spend resources and generate it back all the time. So this is like a crazy like synergy of rune effects. So this is definitely recommended. Pock Q and Xol, giving us more life, and more life is more damage with overpower, and various other effects that we'll talk about. Then we're using Banished Lords. Ideally you want to triple crit the life here as well. Very strong item. Then we're using the redirected force. We already talked about that. Resource cost reduction is a separate multiplier to your Kepeleke. If you have, like me here, 25% resource cost reduction, this is basically giving you 25 extra damage. And then I have the ring here. This one is not ideal because I don't have a greater affix on attack speed, but I was just testing this out, and this is definitely the best way. I also have very bad mineral tempers, but this is like the best ring, and we're using the new technology here, Fell-Through Slayer. This is like what's causing like the big AoE explosion that one-shots the boss. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. And that's pretty much the entire setup. Stats, again, when they are buffed, basically like I'm unbuffed right now, but I could buff myself and it looks like this. But yeah, this is basically my stats, so with elixirs and stuff. So these are my res. Again, you don't want to have negative res, but don't feel too bad if you don't have res cap. I don't have it myself, and I don't think you need it at all because you have such big life and big barrier. And I think it's better. You see I have skulls in here. I think it's better to focus on armor cap. You can reach both if you have like a masterworked triple crit gear that is also with greater affixes. However, I think if you have like 40, 50 to your resistance, you're gonna be fine. Just make sure you don't have negative res. And you can also ditch the armor cap if you want. However, I'm gonna have some breakpoints in the sheet here that I recommend. So you can see here in the sheet, like everything is explained here too. But in the sheet here, you can see we're gonna go through this in a bit. Timestamp is going to be below, by the way, because it's going to be a long video. You can see here like the kind of like breakpoints or stats that I recommend to do like a comfortable pit 150. You know, like with these stats, you can definitely do it. You can do it with lower stats than this. But however, this one makes it like very comfortable, even for like the average player, let's say, to beat the hardest content in the game, to get the achievement, to get the title and all the stuff that comes with it. But yeah, your crit chance you don't need to stack. Again, your Kepeleke gives you 100% crit all the time. And then there's like a bunch of like other stats here that I basically have at the moment. Spirit generation, I have 33% right now, and my intelligence is at 800. Ideally, you want to triple crit the life here as well, so I don't even need this much resource gen. I have a bit too much at the moment. But however, it's very nice to kind of, if you're missing resource, you know, you can just put points or follow through and put more points in Vigorous and get more resources like that. However, I already know I have overcap, so just an alternative for you. And again, it's really important that you hit the Masterwork, the resolve stacks. That's also why many people are lacking Rawhide, because this one is just so important. And the resolve stack is applying 4 times in your damage calculation. We'll talk about that in detail in a little bit. Spirit Hall, the best thing to rock for push is Jaguar. You can also play Gorilla because it gives you more resolve. However, Ferocity is stronger than resolve because it gives you more damage. But Gorilla also makes you unstoppable permanently. So I like Gorilla in speeds, Jaguar in push. And this Jaguar Spirit Hall is basically what's generating all this crazy damage. So if you can see here, like when I attack these target dummies, you can see here the OP numbers are not even the crazy thing. Like the trillions of damage, and I'm not using the explosion tech because obviously these targets can't die, is like 30, 60 trillion. But this is like the white number, and this is coming from the Jaguar Spirit Hall, right? It's not our overpower hits. The overpower hits are also pretty strong, but the Jaguar Spirit Hall is basically what can't overpower, but what's dealing most of your damage because it's double dipping your multipliers. We'll go into the calculation in a bit. Then basic build here again. We have 5 ranks in Quill Volley. We max this passive. We max follow through. We put 1 point in Measured Vortex to trigger a knockdown, and this knockdown is basically giving you a damage multiplier here thanks to the revealing Paragon board node, giving you extra DPS. Then we are maxing this unconstrained, we're maxing Apex. If you have points left, you can put them in diminishment. If you don't want that, again, if you need resource, you put them in Vigorous, follow through. There's a lot of alternatives. Again, the planner, how I have it, you can see here, it's also going to be linked below. Perseverance is really strong. Armored Height is really good. And Armored Height is very important with the setup here without the Midnight Sun Ring, because you need to cast Incarnate skills, and Armored Height is an Incarnate skill. So I chose to actually max this. We actually have, if I attack here, we actually have the Armored Height even higher. But you want to have a minimum of 5 ranks because it gives you 2 resolves. You see, if I remove a rank, it goes down to 1. I put a rank in again, you see this number up here. It goes to 2, 1, 2. So you want to have a minimum of 5 ranks on this Armored Height to keep your resolve stacks. And you can see your resolve stacks right down here. This little 30 number is my resolve. And definitely for 150, I recommend you having at least 20 resolve stacks. Again, you can increase your maximum resolve, because baseline it's only 10. But you can increase it with a temper here. It gives you maximum resolve stacks. And yeah, then the rest you have the skill tree. We have healing here. If you are playing Midnight Sun setup, because if you're reading the Midnight Sun, it says here, gain counter attacks passive effect. So if you're playing Midnight Sun, you want to remove points like this probably, and put them into counter attack, because it's automatically triggering another 1.3 multiplier with your Midnight Sun Ring. So if you're playing that variant, you definitely want the points. In this variant where we play the Fell Through Slayer for the explosions, for the crazy damage, we don't need that because we don't have Midnight Sun anymore, so it's useless. Just keep that in mind. Then another really, really strong passive is Resilience. This one gives you more life. More lives is penta dipping your multipliers, so you definitely want to have a lot of life. And you can see here, whenever I'm casting a Gorilla skill, you might say, but Rob, your Quill Volley is not a Gorilla skill. It's not. But my Armored Height is. You see, if I cast my Armored Height, my life goes up by almost 7,000. And it goes up by that amount for 10 seconds, and my armored height when I attack doesn't have the cooldown this long, right? You see, like, I just keep attacking, and the cooldown gets reduced all the time, and I can just keep pressing my armored height. So this is up all the time. It gives you crazy damage, and is a very good alternative to the maximum resolve stacks tempers. I'm going to talk about the ideal ratio like in a little bit here when we get to that question. But for the generic setup, you just need to know that resilience is also good, but you definitely want to have at least one maximum resolve stack roll. So 20 resolve stacks is the minimum I recommend. So if you don't have 20, you're probably better off double resolve stacking, just like I do. And then if you don't have a Shroud of Death, actually, you can use definitely one resilient roll, because then you have another temper free. So then we are rocking Brilliance, Potent, Furnace, Resolution, Attunement, Supremacy. 1 point in Hunter, you don't need more because the cooldown will automatically reset. This one gives you full Ferocity stacks. You see here, boom, full Ferocity stacks. And it also gives you a permanent multiplier against injured targets, giving you a crazy amount of damage increase. And then lastly, we are playing Prodigy's Tempo. This one basically solves all our cooldown issues, and we just can cast every skill permanently, pretty much. Very powerful. Paragon board, Spirit in the starter board. Again, there's multiple different ones. So I'm already like 290 Paragon. If you don't have this high Paragon, there is a board in the planner. However, like you just remove like, you know, like all the stuff that you populate on the glyph. So for example, if I was lower level, I would just remove all the stuff here that I don't need. You see, boom, boom. Just make sure the glyph is still active. You see, like I just gained 12 points. And the glyph is still active, right? So you can do that. Because you don't need to, like, you know, have the glyph, like, fully populated. I was even missing something, right? Yeah, I'm probably even still missing one thing here, you see? Like, I keep changing so many times. But you see here, like, this is, like, how the full populated glyph is. Like, every dex node is active. Obviously, it's pretty good. But if you don't have this board, there's like it's way more important to pick up all the boards and to pick up all the nodes rather than to fully, you know, juice the glyph. This is like the last thing you do, basically. But yeah, if you have high Paragon, you can fully juice those glyphs. It's the case for most glyphs. So then here next, we're rocking the Viscous Shield here, crazy multiplier with Ritual. And then it is really important, the order of the Paragon nodes, because the order of the Paragon nodes will determine how many stats each node needs. There is a good video from Lucky Luciano that I'm going to link below, how to order your Paragon boards. But basically, you want to go to the right side first and then go up first and go to the left side last, because these are like easy requirements to hit. And these requirements up here are a little bit higher. You can see I'm only like 100 decks above it. So you really want to make sure that you don't attach this board at the end. You want to attach like these left boards here at the end. So we're rocking Viscous Shield here. Then we're going to the right side, Convergence first. And this is why we use Fulminate, which gives us extra lightning damage. And there is a bug with Kenny. There's a glyph Kenny. It gives us non-physical damage. And there's also these nodes here that give us non-physical damage. And these are bugged. They do not work with the Convergence passive. And this is the reason why we need to play Fulminate to get lightning damage. And you want to get this to a minimum of 150 lightning damage to activate the full bonus on Convergence. Do not use Kenny and do not rely on these nodes alone. You will need lightning damage. And we get this with Fulminate very easily. And we're also rocking Ritual here in the Viscous Shield board now, because this one is giving you potency for those Mystic Circles. And those Mystic Circles are double dipping. It's these things that spawn on the ground here. Whenever we're in there, we are spawning them with this Plains Power Aspect, which spawns the circle and also gives us a crazy multiplier when we're in the circle. And we have the potency all over on our gear, which is a separate multiplier. And it's being increased further with the Ritual Glyph that also gives us another 2 multipliers. You see 10% when we're in the circle, 10% damage reduction, and another 10.4% X. So it's crazy, crazy damage when we're in those circles. And then up here we are playing Colossal. This one gives us more damage for every resolve stack that we have, increasing our damage tremendously, even though our Quill Volley is not a gorilla skill. So we are basically just ignoring this 83% damage that we have on this glyph. Just ignore that, you don't benefiting from this. We're using it for the multiplier. Because if I have 30 stacks. 30 times 2 is 60. So that means this glyph is giving me a 1.6 multiplier. And on top of this, it's also giving me another 12% multiplier against close enemies. And I mean, with this build, like, we're always close to the enemy, right? So we're always hitting the enemy in melee range. So this glyph is insanely strong. And then up here, if you're a high Paragon, you can pick up more lucky hit chance with Sentinel. And you want to pick up these lucky hit chances because of the Fell Soothsayer, which causes this like quadrillions of explosion damage, relies on lucky hit. So you want to stack lucky hit in this build. And also your gloves, if you don't play the Midnight Sun version, also rely on lucky hit. You know, in order to restore your resource. You see, like, this is only possible thanks to the lucky hits that we're getting. And then we're also combining this again with revealing. We're knocking down enemies. And again, the knockdown happens with our Cyclone Strike. Like, obviously, I can't do it on the target dummy, right? But if we were to fight normal monsters, I can knock them in with Vortex. I can pull them, I knock them back, and I get the multiplier. And bosses will be staggered at some point. You see the stagger bar. We stagger a lot because of all our lucky hit procs. This also helps us to stagger because on lucky hit here, we also have a chance to knock down vulnerable targets. And we make them vulnerable with our Quill Volley update here, with our skill 1 upgrade here all the time. Quill Volley makes enemies vulnerable for 3 seconds, and like, we just spam this. So every enemy is vulnerable all the time, pretty much. Triggering this effect, staggering the bosses, and then triggering itself, basically. So lucky hit, very important. And then lastly, we want the sapping board here. Again, this is the last board you want to attach. And here is also very important. You must hit these benefits here, because it gives you extra resource generation. It gives you extra resources, which is a crazy multiplier. And we're adding the Hubris Glyph. You might ask, yeah, but we're not a Thorns build. We don't have to be a Thorns build, but Hubris gives us a 300% bonus to all the magic nodes. And this allows us to hit this crazy amount of resources. Because I get asked a lot, Rob, like, I'm unbuffed here, like no elixir, right? Like, if I were to drink my resource elixir, it would be even higher, right? But we don't want this. We want to always drink the life elixir. So I have 300 resource without the life elixir. If I had perfect Masterworks, it would be a little less. I think it goes down by 4. So you're probably looking at something like 290 resource. Even if you don't have a great affix on your Kepeleke, still try to hit 275. And again, the main way we get to these resources is thanks to Hubris and thanks to these opportunist nodes. Make sure you pick them all up. 4 max resource, 4 max resource. Like, pick these up. And socket in the Hubris Glyph. It gives you another 1.1 multiplier, and it gives you these crazy amounts of resources. And it also fixes all your stat problems. If you don't have enough intelligence to hit board requirements, if you don't have enough strength, you just skill these. You see, they're supposed to give you +7, but with the multiplier, they give +29. And this also gives me armor. You see, if I don't play this, like, my armor is not that great. And with these, my armor goes up significantly because strength gives you armor. Intelligence gives you resource gen. Dexterity gives you damage. So the stats are still extremely good, especially to reach all these points here. You see, like this one here, training. You definitely want to reach this as well. It's becoming a lot easier with Shroud of the False Death because it gives so much all stats. But if you don't have this item, you definitely want to look at your Paragon board with an extra detailed eye, because you might miss a lot of requirements, and everything is a multiplier. If you're missing 4% life here, or if you're missing the lucky hit chance here, it is a big deal, because you're going to lose out on a lot of multiplicative damage. And that's very important here at the end. So that is pretty much the overview. Last thing is the Mercenary. So a lot of people ask me, Rob, how do you get Fortified? You see here, this right here guy is hyperactive. And the way to get Fortify, you see it keeps going up when he attacks, is the Mercenary right here with Shield Charge. Yes, Shield Charge can be a blessing and a curse, because, I don't know, it's like a hate-love relationship I have with right here, because a lot of times he just pulls out the enemies outside of the pool with his Shield Charge. It is annoying, but it does give you that juicy Fortify. And as you know, we overpower all the time, and Fortify and overpower is based on how much life we have and how much of that life is fortified. So the Fortify is a separate damage multiplier for our damage. So Shield Charge right here, very important. And then we're also using him to boost our armor, and we're using him to CC the enemies, gives us damage reduction, and also 15% X increased damage whenever he taunts. For the reinforcement, we use Variana with attack speed, Bloodthirst. You can put this on your Hunter, you can put this on your Quill Volley. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, it's not up all the time. So I really like it on my Hunter, so I can, like, basically choose when to do it, right? Because I Quill Volley all the time, and when I do Hunter, now I know I have my attack speed buff. Because that's when I deal my big damage. So I recommend it, assigning it to the Hunter, because it's gonna have a downtime. And it is needed to reach the final attack speed breakpoint. We will also talk about the breakpoints here. So that is the general overview of the build. Like, the gameplay is pretty simple. You keep up your armor type, you keep up your Scourge, you keep up your Revenger. You, I mean, there's many gameplay videos. I'm going to link some below. And you basically just, like, attack the enemies and, you know, use your Hunter and use your Vortex to pull them in and just keep blasting, basically. It's a very simple, like, just attack, 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 attack. Obviously, there are a lot more nuances to it that you can see in the gameplay. But the baseline, just spam 3 of your skills. Quill Volley is your main attack. You pull in with Vortex. And then you buff your damage with Hunter. And positioning can be very important. You definitely want to position yourself in a way. I want to show this best with resources. So you want to position yourself in a way where you can see, like, all these attacks. Basically, I'm using rebounding whenever I do speedruns, because this is just, like, so fast and clears so much AoE. But you want to position yourself in a way that is, like, right in the middle of the target, because then all your Quill Volleys will hit the target, right? It's, like, way stronger if you position yourself like this. Rather than shooting like this. Like, this is not going to deal much damage. You want to be in their face, close, right on them, and basically shotgun. Shotgun the effect. And this also works, obviously, like, just with this. Like, it's just not going to rebound. But the rebounding is better for everything that is not pit push. I have a speed variant. I'm also going to link that below. It's also here in the sheet. Again, if you want to play speedruns, it is the speed variant right here. So there's all the different variants. Okay, overpower resource we talked about. Masterwork, what is... We're going to get into the Q&A now. Masterwork, most important. So you want to masterwork on your armor pieces. You want to masterwork the resolve stacks or the resilient, depending on which combination you want to go with. Right now, I did my 4 minutes 150 with double resolve stack. However, having one resilience roll is ideal, because life is such a crazy multiplier. Again, the resolve stacks is also a crazy multiplier, but one resilience roll is extremely good. I don't have it at the moment because I just don't have another helmet. I already wasted all my tempers. It is not really too relevant because the DPS difference is very minimal. I think it's about 10% or something, ballpark. But if you do go for a resilience roll, for example on the helm, you really want to have a triple crit on the resolve stacks, because else you're going down. Let's say this was resilient now, like I would only have 17 stacks, and that is really low. You want to have a minimum of 20 resolve stacks. It's giving you damage reduction and it's giving you damage. And if you pay attention, like with Perseverance, you get a lot, 2% per stack. So this thing here right now gives me 60% damage reduction, right? So you want to be really careful to not go too low resolve, like minimum 20. If you don't have a triple crit, I recommend you going double resolve stacks if you're playing with Shroud. If you're not playing Shroud, then definitely go for one resilience, no matter what you do. But this is all, again, explained here in the sheet a bit below as well. We're going to go in order now, though. So, Resolve, Resilience, very strong. Better than Life. Life is triple dipping, but these are still better because Resilient basically gives you life and Resolves gives you toughness and damage. Mystic Sickle Potency is also pretty good. And Dex is still very strong because it's also multi-dipping, but it's not stronger than the rest here. So these are like the 4 most important things that you want to masterwork usually. So Amulet, you masterwork life. Mine is like wrong, but I don't have resources to redo it right now. And things like that. On the gloves, for example, you don't want to masterwork Quill Volley, you want to masterwork life or the potency. Because those are all multi-dipping. And the Quill Volley is only applied twice in damage calculation. We'll talk about that very soon. Then we have Kepeleke, most important stats. So again, order of importance is secondary, 3%, most important. Second strongest, chance for core skill through it twice. Third strongest, resources. Fourth strongest, if you will, crit damage, and last strongest, velocity. However, like you don't really, I don't have a GA even on velocity, so this is like extremely good weapon already. Ideally triple crit the core skill ranks. And then we have here why we use basic skills. Again, our Kepeleke makes our core skill into a basic skill, so we can use +3 basic ranks on our pants. You see it's rank 18, I remove it, now it's rank 15. So these benefits, like basic skill on pants is extremely powerful still. But you definitely don't want to masterwork it though, because resolve is way better, and even life would be better than resolve. So again, same reason why we don't masterwork Quill Volley, we don't masterwork basic skills. The alternatives are simply more DPS. Okay, maybe drink a second. Okay, next question is resilience versus resolve. We already talked about this. 1-to-1 ratio is perfect, or double resolve. Don't use double resilience, and make sure to have at least +9 or something before you go for 150. Like, my recommendation is having again 20 resolve stacks minimum, because damage reduction and damage. So that is like the breakpoints. And then why is block chance resolve so important? Again, resolve is scaling in multiple ways, right? It gives us more block chance per resolve, and that gives us more damage from our redirected force, more crit damage, and we crit all the time with Kepeleke. Resolve also gives us, well, first of all, it also gives us basically 20% damage reduction once we have stacks up. And it gives us more damage reduction with Perseverance, so double defense damage with this. And then it also gives you generic damage, again, with our Colossal Glyph. So I can't stress enough how important the resolve stacks are. You want to have a minimum of 20 if you want to have a good chance of clearing the highest pit, 150. Other caps to reach here, I definitely recommend armor cap. So armor, I think, is really important. Again, I'm using the Song of the Mountain to reach this, together with this. So I have 1,000 armor exactly. You don't want to have 1,100, it's too much. Aim for 1,000 armor, and it's very easy to adjust here with Paragon. So let's say I take these two out, you see I don't have armor cap, but I can just take them back in, and then I have the cap. And if you need more armor, you can get rid of something else and take in more armor here, for example on Patience. Just make sure you have armor cap, because a lot of things are physical. And then on resistances, I don't think they're that important on this build. We talked about it earlier a bit. Reaching armor cap, basically like you use armor gems. And I think you can use one armor roll. I don't even have it right now. You can either use an armor roll or an all-res roll on your helm. You can also go with dex. However, I think having one defensive roll here, especially if you are a more casual player, is very good. Right now I have all-res. And you can also make this on your boots if you like. Like, I like movement speed. It gives you damage and it gives you movement speed. However, you can also go with armor or res here if you feel like you're too squishy, right? Because movement speed doesn't give you toughness, it just gives you more damage if you combine it with your brilliance. Okay, then for resistances, I don't think it's too important to have max res. It's very nice to have it, but it's very hard to reach, even with my high Paragon. I'm kind of struggling, you know, to reach the resistances. This is how it looks with my final setup. So again, Midnight Sun helps you certainly to reach your res. It's very much harder with a normal ring. So this is like my current resistance. I basically have max cold, max poison, max lightning. I'm missing a little bit of fire, which kind of sucks. But again, I could spec more armor and then use Storms of the Wild, and then my resistances would be much better already. However, again, this is like very much up to you and your preferences. I prefer to have the armor cap and have a little bit less res. And I could still give up damage to get both, right? I could just give up the movement speed and damage from Brilliance to just get res if you feel like you're too squishy. However, I still recommend you having at least positive res. If you have like absolutely no res, I think it's going to be difficult because you're also losing damage if your barrier breaks. Because this viscous shield only works for barrier that is active. Like if your If you notice that your barrier, that your life here does not have barrier, then you definitely want to stack more toughness, because that also means you're losing a lot of damage. Going more here, there is an attack speed breakpoint too. I don't even have it right now because my ring is not ideal, but the game is running on frames. There's always going to be attack speed breakpoints. There's a good calculator that I'm going to link that is in the sheet here from Sanctum that you can basically just make a copy of. And you basically need double GA or at least one crit on your GA to have 164 attack speed when you're buffed. These buffs include the 10% attack speed you have from Bloodthirst and the Ferocity stacks. Right now I'm a bit short because I just switched my ring. So I think here, actually I have 166. Okay, I got the attack speed for it. But again, it depends a little bit like on the current buffs that you have. If all the buffs are up, then it works. And if your reinforcement is down, it doesn't work. But I basically have GA here, and a perfect roll here on the ring, not GA. And that just gets you there. You just have to see like what's your buffed attack speed gonna be. Because like as your ferocity stacks go down, you see like it goes down from to 11, then it goes down to 10. And if you use your hunter, it's gonna like refresh them again. So 164% attack speed is the breakpoint. Again, it's conditional because you can't keep this up 100% of the time. You could masterwork attack speed. I don't think it's more DPS to have this permanently up. I think it's fine whenever you have your burst with your hunter and you use the mercenary, then it's gonna work for the max attack speed cap. Then the next breakpoint here, how we get 100% barrier. Again, we use the Q rune here, giving us the Druid, Earth, and Bulwark. The base of this Bulwark, you see we just attack. You see this shield around us. This gives us shield. And it gives us 100% of our life. But you do need 123 barrier generation, because in order to get from 45%, which is base Druid Bulwark, to 100%, you need this multiplier. And you're getting it with gems, like you're using amethysts. And then you need one barrier roll here, one here, and we don't need it on the boots anymore, because vortex size is extremely good to just make pixel pulls. So just make sure you have 123 barrier generation for max DPS output. Now the next thing is like, how do we reach this crazy damage, right? This is like one of the craziest hits. Like this is enough to one-shot every monster in the entire game. Again, including the boss here in pit 150, which is the highest pit that there is. Like it just gets one-shot completely. Nope. And in order to do this high damage, there is an underlying DPS calculation that basically is bugged on the new class. And all here is like not 100% confirmed. It is just my current understanding, and to some extent the current community understanding of the way all these DPS math works in ways that is basically multiplying itself. So there's basically three main interactions that make this build like so crazy strong. First of all is Viscous Shield. We already talked about it. The more life you have and the more barrier of that, and the more of that life is barrier, the more DPS you get. And you would think that this passive says it's capped to 33%, right? Because you can only have 100% of your life in barrier. However, it's calculating based off the base life that you have. And so that means every bonus life, like max life, life percent, every life node that you have is essentially a multiplier for your Viscous Shield, because it exceeds the 33% and it goes up to like 10, 20x. Like, I don't even know. I think it's completely uncapped in the end. Obviously, you have a cap to how much life you can have. Again, right now, like my life is 37,000. But, you know, it keeps going up, basically, if you have even better gear. And I didn't triple masterwork. You can have, like, more than... I think I've saw up to 50,000 life. Especially if you're stacking your resilience. Like, you can have up to 50,000 life. At the minimum, I recommend, like, when you're buffed, to have 20,000 life. Like, all your buffs up. I have 37. Like, you can have half of that and still be very comfortable doing 150. And again, this is with only 4 ranks in resilience, and this is still with 30 resolve stacks. So if you get lucky and you get some triple crits, you will have even crazier stats than I have. But you need to have the triple crits or the resilience. The second interaction that is crazy is the Jaguar Spirit Hall. It's this little thing here. Every 15 times you deal direct damage, you do an additional strike for 15% of the damage you have dealt in the last half second. So this is a mouthful, but what it basically does, it's producing this white numbers here. And that is hitting, you know, for the crazy amount of damage that you see. And it's because it's taking all your multipliers in your base attack, right? Like you're attacking with Quill Volley, which is a Jaguar skill, thanks to this Spirit Hall. Like all my skills are Jaguar skills. So this is a Jaguar skill. And whenever we attack with Quill Volley, we trigger this. Like 15 times we trigger it. And then it unleashes an additional strike based on the damage we have done. So let's say we do 100 damage. And I don't know, the damage gets multiplied just by 10. So that means we do 1,000 damage, you know, like take, you know, like all our DPS multipliers, like we overpower, we get another 1.4 here. And then we do 1,000 damage. And then this 1,000 damage, 15% of that, gets multiplied by all our multipliers again. So that means all our multipliers are essentially double dipping. If we're doing a feared enemy, if we're attacking a feared enemy, all our DPS gets, all our damage multipliers apply again. And this is like the squared scaling that makes us hit, or one of the squared scalings that make us hit, you know, for quintillions of damage. And then there is another one that is also doing damage based on previous done damage. And this has been bugged like basically in every build that comes to the game. We have had this happen on Shred Druids with Blurred Beast. We have had this happen on Rogues with poison damage multi-dipping. We have had this happen on the Bleed Barb with base damage of Berserk Ripping multi-dipping. It's always the same principle. You do damage based off damage that you've already done. And there's always a math problem with this where it's just like squaring all the damage again. So all generic damage is double dipping. And even penta dipping, because it's double dipping with the Jaguar Spirit Hall, and then this all gets multiplied again with the Fell Slayer, and then this gets multiplied with the Viscous Shield. And so this is why we can reach, at least the theory, this insane DPS. There's some problem in the math, in the math formula. And all these bugs combined, again, result in this crazy damage. So, like basically generic damage, like if I'm just like taking a glyph, like very simple glyph here. So we stand in a mystic circle, we get 1.1 damage. This 1.1 damage is applied 4 times. So you would basically calculate this 1.1 damage as 1.1 to the power of, can I not do this? To the power of 4. So this 10% damage becomes a 50% damage multiplier, or 46% damage multiplier, again to our final damage number. And I mean, you can take, I don't know, like some strong multiplier, like a 1.5 or something, and then it gets 5x'd, for example, with all these bugs. And then on top of this, so generic damage is applied 3 times. Life is applied 4 times. You're getting basic overpower damage from extra life, and you're getting triple generic damage from the Viscous Shield. Again, the Viscous Shield, first of all, it applies to your Quill Volley, and then it applies to your Jaguar Hall, and then it applies again to your Fell aspect. And again, like this is just like how the squared multiplying goes crazy, right? And then the same is for Resolve stacks. This is why it's so strong. Resilience is life, so it's penta dipping. Resolve stacks also penta dipping. Resolve stacks, they increase your block. They increase your damage reduction anyways, but they increase your block. And they increase your generic damage, again through the Colossal Glyph, applying 3 times. So DPS goes crazy, basically. Like all these effects are insane. And that is also why it's not good to Masterwork Quill Volley, why it's not good, you know, to use Resource Elixir, because this 20% life is applied 4 times in the final damage calculation. Again, applied to Overpower, applied to Viscous Shield, and that Viscous Shield is applied 3 times. So, yeah, it's a lot of damage. And this is the same principle with the Mystic Circles, right? Like this one here is buffing our damage for Jaguar skills. And our Quill Volley is a Jaguar skill. So whenever we have this Mystic Circle, not only are we getting a bunch of generic damage, but we're also getting 8% per ferocity stack, which is 14. 14 times 8 and then squared. Because our Quill Volley is a Jaguar skill. And obviously our Jaguar Haul is also a Jaguar skill, which is, it's applied to Quill Volley Jaguar and then it's applied to the Jaguar again. And that's why this aspect is stronger than Moonrise. Because Moonrise, I don't know if I have one right now, but Moonrise is still a good item, right? But the thing is, this Moonrise, you see it only buffs basic skills. Our Quill Volley is a basic skill, thanks to Kepeleke. But our Jaguar main haul is not a basic skill. So that's why Moonrise is still good. But again, Moonrise is not multi-dipping. But Plains Power is. It's applied twice. And you can scale it with Mystic Circle potency. That's why this aspect and the Mystic Circles, at least for a high pit push, they win out very easily over Moonrise. And again, there's also a version where you play Moonrise if you don't want to use the Fel thing. You can still use Moonrise if you like. However, again, the one-shot setup is with Fel, and this is the best setup. Paragon Node Order, how to reach the requirements. Again, there's a great video here from Lucky. You can check it out. The next thing here is a Breakpoints checklist to beat 150. So this is about the stats. And these are the buffed stats, right? So these are the 3 things that I use to pre-buff. Again, you can use all rest if you already have enough armor instead of the Song of the Mountain, but this is what I use. And the way it works is with these stats, in my opinion, it's very easy, even for like the average player, to beat 150. 20k life, again, you can have up to 50,000, but I think 20k is more than enough. 123% barrier generation, 20 resolve stacks, 100 resource generated on lucky hit, either with the Midnight Sun or with your gloves. I recommend the one-shot setup with the gloves. It's going to be much easier than any Midnight Sun setup for the 150. So you just need 100% resource gen. And you already have, if you have a greater affix, you already have 90. If it's not greater affix, you have 60. But you need to multiply that 60 by 24. You need to multiply it by 1.3. And you need to multiply it by 1.16. And you need to multiply it by however many points you have in Vigorous, 1.1 in my case. So I have way overkill resource. You do not need this much. You just need 100%. That's it. You don't need like this crazy amount, but I can't get rid of any, basically. Is what it boils down to. 1k armor, like I said, at least positive resistances. Again, you don't need because you have barrier and life, but I still recommend some. Paragon 240 is sort of what I recommend to have like a fully functioning planner, because else it's very hard to pick up like these lucky nodes to reach the requirements and everything. So you can probably do it at like 220, 230. However, it doesn't really take all that long. Like, you know, Paragon 300, I need like 616 million XP for a level at about 290. And at about 299, it's 1 billion. So going to level 230 or 240, that won't take too long. I think most of you watching this video, like before they do 150, like naturally, because clearing pits and pushing higher gives you XP, they will already be there, basically. So I think you're going to get to 240, and then you can follow, again, the planners here. And if you still need to put out points, like, there's no reason, basically, if you're low Paragon, to populate the glyphs. You want to make sure that you hit all the nodes. So you could take, like, you see this one? It's just there. Like, you can, like, remove these. Like, all these you can remove, and the glyph is still fine, right? So, boom, 3 points saved. And you can basically apply this, you know, to most of the glyphs here. Just take out the extra nodes. Boom, you can take out some resistances. You see here, like, boom, okay, attack speed, dodge, okay, I might need that. Resource gen, I have enough already, so I can take these out usually. And boom, so suddenly it's like a 249 planner. And you can keep taking stuff out. If you have too much barrier, you know, you take out like one of the barrier nodes. Like, you'll have to see. it's very individual here. You see here, you have too much in, you take this out, and then boom, like you're already done, pretty much. You take another rest node out, you can take another node out here. Like very easy, and now it's like 240 Paragon, and if you don't have 240, like unfortunately you need to take out like some big nodes here. And then, yeah, it's already like 230, and you can keep going like that, basically. You get the principle. So just follow the planner, 240 Paragon, this will work. 220, pretty tough. 230, doable. 250, easy peasy. Pre-buff setup, we already talked about this. Can I play without the Mystic Shroud? Yes, just play Binding Morass. Like if I don't have this one, you play with Morass, this one. And then you put a Resilience on it, like this. So this would be your alternative to the Shroud chest, basically. But yeah, I don't want to save this planner, so I'll just reload it. You can also play with Starless Sky. I have not played that setup much, but there is an alternative here to your rings. You can play Starless Sky, it gives you lucky hit and stuff, it helps you to proc this aspect. However, you have to give up the Mystic Circles. And as we already established, Mystic Circles is multi-dipping, so it's crazy. Starless Sky will also double dip, or at least triple dip actually. But it's still weaker because you don't really need the crit chance. The core skills is okay, but overall you will lose a big multiplier if you're using it. In the end game, I think it's going to be fine. You can still beat 150 in a very fast time, even with Starless Sky. But since Starless Sky is harder to get than a normal ring, I definitely just recommend a well-rolled ring with a legendary aspect. Then there's also an alternative here. You can go Gorilla versus Jaguar on the second Spirit Hall choice. I already talked about this. Jaguar is more damage, but if you like the Unstoppable, and if you like to have more toughness, you go with Gorilla. However, I like the most DPS setup, and that is Jaguar, because Ferocity, again, is crazy dipping with the Mystic Circles. Pew, pew, pew. Then we talked about resource cost already. It's a separate multiplier for Kepeleke. This seems to be the intended way. So the more resource cost you have, the more the Kepeleke damage will be. Harmony of Ebewaka. So this is the helm. This is also a good alternative. Especially, I played this for quite some time. Early on, it's very good if you don't have tempers yet on your helm. However, the moment you have Resolve or Resilient Temper, Harmony is just simply less DPS than one of those helms, because Harmony is not applying, for example, to your Spirit Hall, so it's not multi-dipping like the craziness that the Resolve stacks has, and Resolve stacks overall is just better. You also get more resources from your helm, which you don't get from Harmony. And again, resource is scaling well with Kepeleke. So Harmony is a good alternative, especially early on, but in the end, it just loses out because it's providing less DPS. Why we don't have counterattack on the bar, again, in the Midnight Sun ring, you're getting the counterattack passive from your ring. If you're playing Midnight Sun, you want to have 3 skill points in counterattack. Next thing here is, why not Masterwork Quill Volley? We already talked about that as well. So on the gloves, you want to Masterwork Life or the Circle Potency, because Quill Volley is only applying in your damage calculation once. And you already have quite some ranks in Quill Volley. So I think we already, like when we trigger our second stuff, we already have 20 ranks. So if you're going from 20 to like 21, it's not that big a deal, because it might be 10% base, but if you already have 20 ranks, it's something like 3% per rank or something. So not worth it, because the life, again, is multiplying your damage calculation even crazier. The same reason why we don't play Pangorgers Gloves, it basically just is less damage than the alternatives. And then I also get asked a lot, yeah, but Rob, what do I do if I'm in 150 and I want to clear it, and then I don't get a boss with minions? You see, like this fell aspect only works when there's minions around. Boom. Boom. So you need minions, and if you don't have a boss with minions in high pit, again in 140 doesn't matter, you can kill him anyways, but in 150 the boss has a lot of life and you just need to make a new game. So this is a list of all the bosses you can kill, and I think there's only 3 or 4 bosses that don't have any minions. The Spirit Caller of Frost, he spawns minions. Malice, this is the boss you just saw here. This is the resurrected Malice, he dies easy, he has archers. Slither, it's the snake, she spawns like little snakes. Scourge of Lands, he spawns demons. Hive Master, this is the bug. He spawns like flies and bugs. Seahawk, she also spawns stuff. And the Blood Bishop, he spawns Blood Blisters. I think the only bosses you can't kill is Mother's Judgment, the Barbarian Chieftain, Mother's Judgment boss. Maybe I'm missing one, but like you can kill most of the bosses. Like almost all the bosses have ads. There's only a very few bosses. Yeah, Bramble, the tree. So there's 4 bosses you can't kill, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bosses you can kill or something. Oh yeah, and the Den Mother. Okay, 1 more boss. 5 bosses you can't kill and 7 you can kill. But you have good odds. Like more than half the bosses have minions. And if you have the right build and you stagger them and you play it right, like your boss kill will just be 5 seconds because spawn at, stagger, and dead. Boom. That's gonna be most boss kills for you. But yeah, it takes some practice. It might not work the first time because it's about timing, and you also have to be lucky because the ring only has like it doesn't trigger all the time, right? You gotta like pay a bit of attention. Like the monsters needs to be close. Like for example on the bishop, lots of times the blood blister is just too far away from the bishop and stuff. So there's like still a bit of RNG involved into all this, and you need lucky it. Like again, because if you don't get it lucky, then it doesn't work sometimes. So just be careful like how the position is when the stagger is happening. For example, on Blood Bishop, you can't even stagger him because if you stagger him, the Blood Blister despawn. So you just gotta be like, there's a strategy for every boss. Like I might make a separate video if you guys want me to. But yeah, just practice. Pangorger again, not that good. Masterworking, so this is like one of the last things here, guys. Long video. There are a lot of bugs in the game right now, and I do not recommend you engage in any of them. People have been duping and actually been, okay, the content is not even available anymore, and been basically producing items that should be impossible, but yet they still have them. You see, for example, this one here, there is a multi-masterwork on this item. Like you see this guy, he triple crit resilience, he triple crit barrier, and he double crit, I think this is dexterity. So there are a lot of bugged items that exist here, and this is mostly happening, I think, in China. Like at least most of the screenshots here are not like of the English language, and they found out various bugs, how to completely bug out the items, duplicate the items. And I do not recommend this. Of course, like this is the best. Like you can get 18 resilience. I'm only including this because many people ask me about it. Like, how do I get 18 resolve stacks? How do I do this? I'm not gonna tell you how because this is very buggy and it'll most likely result in you risking the account that you do this on, and also in the item either being removed or your materials being gone, because there's no way this is going to stay in the game, my friends. This is like clearly a bug. You're only supposed to masterwork your item 3 times. And the people that figured out this ways to masterwork it multiple times, like that is not really healthy for the game, and it's going to like impact it very negatively usually. So also be extremely careful right now. There is multiple duping methods floating around, and people have been reporting, like if you have a perfect Kepeleke, like let's say the velocity on this one was also a greater affix, there is a very high chance that it is being duped. There's also a lot of duped helms and duped pants with triple greater affixes, so be careful if you're getting perfect items for a very cheap price or even durian materials. There are a lot of dupes floating around, and these dupes, they can disappear because it's just duplicated items that have the same item ID. You might remember this 20 years ago in Diablo 2. We had a big dupe problem as well. People have been duping Stones of Jordans and runes and all kinds of stuff. And these are basically unperm items. So if you have too many of the same item with the same item ID on the same server, the items will disappear. So be very careful who you trade with. Don't trade perfect items, or at least don't trade perfect items with people you don't know. And yeah, lots of these dupes are floating the market right now, so just be careful about this. Last question here, last 2 questions is like difference from Kepeleke. I had this asked a lot. A lot of people have a 2.8 Kepeleke, so if you're missing your Kepeleke is not, if it's not perfect yet, you basically have about a 6% damage loss for every 0.2% that it's not perfect. So if you have a 2.8, you're missing 6% damage. If you have a 2.6, you're missing about 12-13% damage, and so on and so on. So again, the secondary is really important. Big DPS difference. And then lastly here, guys, I want to show you, because I've been there with you, the build has changed and the meta has shifted so many times. Now we finally arrived at something somewhat stable that can very easily do 150. In fact, people are clearing 150 in just 3 minutes. So if you want to do it in 15 minutes, it's not going to be super easy, but I think it's the easiest one that you can get, because this build is so powerful, one-shotting everything if you just play it right. So follow the planner, and if you need Rawhide, because you need to Masterwork a lot, again, I recommend at least a yellow Resolve Temper on at least 2 items, and this will cost a lot of Rawhide. And I have a very nice video that you can, if you want, you can watch it next. I made this. Hey everybody, it's Rob here. If you are playing Spiritborn or even other classes, you have a great Rawhide shortage. So there's this Rawhide shortage, and I made this video here that you can also find in the sheet. Again, it's gonna all be linked in the description, showing you how to... It's not crazy Rawhide, but you still get a decent amount, maybe until it gets fixed from Blizzard, just like we had with Forgotten Souls. And that's basically the FHQ, guys. Again, all the planners, everything is here. And there are a lot of variants. I'm probably gonna make even more variants for different Paragon levels and different stuff. And again, if you're just starting out, guys, definitely recommend you to play the normal version, not the one-shot version. But the one-shot version, again, is much better and much easier here to do 150 with. You will one-shot everything if you build it correctly. And the playstyle is not too tough, and the character is also relatively tanky. I hope you enjoyed the video. Share it with a friend if you liked it. Leave a sub, leave a comment. Helps a lot. It took a tremendous amount of effort here. Actually, like about 5 hours on stream just crafting this, and then hundreds of hours of playtime. And I'm happy to share the knowledge, guys. I hope it helps you. Good luck on the 150. Get that achievement and that title. I'll see you there. GG, my friends. Take care. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe, leave a like or a comment. I'm also live on Twitch almost every day, so come and say hi.